freak show babes. Hottest stars of the year.
Year later, they were ice.
3 unique women, Jack. Found that each one needs the movie, the money, the second chance as much as he does.
Welcome home.
There's only 2 things I hate about you, sugar.
What are they?
Your face. A little tough. Her girlfriend's had more reconstruction than Baghdad.
And that all happened right here.
That's right.
Hell, in the time it took him to get a hard on, I could have shampooed the rugs and learned Braille.
See, I may be a felon, a psycho, a drunk, an addict, an adulterer, and a petty thief, but I have principles. Hello, she had a mouth like a Hoover vacuum. She could go down on a fire hydrant and not chip a tooth. That's because she went down on anything that went up. Snap, ooh, dip, ooh, dang.
Well, maybe he only wanted those 2.
Or maybe he's trying to kill us all.
Waste of time. I'm going for the goal while I'm in my prime. I'm a star that shines. I illuminate. I don't hesitate or procrastinate. People need more communication.
What's your story? Gay, straight?
I'm straight.
So spaghetti till you cook it.
Barry, can you tell me a little bit about how Kansas City Bomber came to be, and especially working with the epic Raquel Welch?
How the film came about is quite an unconventional circumstance. I was a UCLA film student and had written a script about the roller derby, which was kind of this subcultural phenomenon in the early 70s. And I thought it would be a great backdrop for a movie. It had never been done before. And I thought using a female character, roller derby queen, would be just a great way to tap into the pop culture of the era, the early 70s, and Raquel Welch being this kind of pop culture icon would be the perfect person to play it. And she was, one of the big stars, movie stars at the time. So I was determined to get it to her. I had an agent at the time, and I had submitted it to the agency, and they were going to send it to her. But I envisioned the script being on a stack of 30 other scripts that she would never get to. So I was determined to get it to her some way. So I found out where she lived. I got one of those maps to the movie stars' homes. And I took the script one day, drove up there, and found her house on the map, and parked in front of the house and rang the doorbell. And her assistant, young woman, answered the door. And I said, hi, I'm a UCLA film student. I wrote the script for Raquel, and I think she'll love it. I think she'll be great at it. And the assistant was kind of taken aback. He said, well, this is very unusual behavior. We've never done this before, but she said, Raquel's in Europe, but I'll read the script, and if I like it, I'll give it to her. And several weeks went by, and I hadn't heard anything, and I called the assistant, and she said, well, Raquel is back from Europe, and Raquel's back from Europe, and she likes the title, The Kansas City Bomber, and she'll get to it when she can. Anyway, long story short, she, more time went by. I decided to write her a letter and tell her about the script, and tell her what what my motives were in writing it, and why I thought she'd be great for it. And the letter, I sent her the letter, and she got the letter, and motivated her to read the script. And the next thing I knew, she wanted to do the movie. So it came about in a very unorthodox way, but I ended up getting the movie made. Now, I wouldn't advise that today. We're kind of in an era where you're liable to get shot if you try doing that. But it was the early 70s, so it was a much more a calmer time, let's say. So I was able to get away with it. But that story has followed me all these years through UCLA, the annals of UCLA Film School. So. The Bureaucrat came about in an interesting way that they had a script by a British writer, and they wanted an American writer to rewrite it and Americanize it, if you will. And they had liked my work, the producers, and came to me and offered me the job to do it. And go to England and work with big stars, yeah, it was great. So that was a terrific experience working on that film and being in England at the time. And then they asked me to do the next one too, The Evil Under the Sun, and that was a longer period in England, but it was great just living there and then to work with these stars, to be on the set with Elizabeth Taylor and Rock Hudson, Kim Novak, Angela Lansbury, was just a great experience for me. He's kind of a starstruck kid, from Buffalo, New York. To be working with Elizabeth Taylor was pretty exciting. And then with Evil Under the Sun with Maggie Smith and Peter Ustinov, actors like that, Diana Rigg, was also a great experience. So I got a lot out of them, both those films. In fact, The Mirror Cracked, there was originally cast with Natalie Wood in the lead, and I worked with Natalie and adored her. She was just great. Loved her, working with her. But she had got into just kind of a conflict with the director and left the movie. And I remember the producer calling me one day and saying, "I've got good news and bad news." I said, "Well, what's the bad news?" He said, "Natalie's just left the movie." And I was pretty upset about that. He said, "I want to hear the good news." I said, "Okay, what's the good news?" He said, "We just signed Elizabeth Taylor." So I got over my upset pretty quickly. With Making Love, which we did in the early 80s, we were in a conservative era. Reagan had been elected, and the country was in a more conservative time. But so we were really going against the grain, and it was just pre-AIDS, too. So remember Scott Berg, who was my partner at the time, was very influential in trying to get the project off the ground and in getting me to write it, which I resisted in the beginning. And he, finally convinced me that this is an important, groundbreaking film that we needed to make. And we took it to 20th Century Fox, the idea, the concept, to Sherry Lansing and Claire Townsend, two women who were running the studio. Sherry was really running the studio. Claire was a development executive. And they responded right away. I mean, they thought this would be a pioneering film and that would really make an impact. And I think it was because of the two women who were really behind it that the film got made at the time. And I went off and wrote the script, and Danny Melnick, who was a major producer at the time, had just signed a deal at 20th Century Fox and wanted this to be his first film at Indie Prod. So with his clout and his power, certainly we were able to get the film made, and we enlisted Arthur Hiller, who was a highly esteemed director. He'd done Love Story and Padishevsky's The Hospital, The Americanization of Emily, and The In-Laws. So he was a major director at the time. He responded to the material, wanted to be a part of this groundbreaking event, and that's how the film got made. It came about pretty quickly, actually, once I turned in the script. And the script that I turned in was very, very close to the final film. There weren't a lot of changes. We've evolved since Making Love up to Brokeback. I would say a lot has to do with, in terms of our acceptance of gay characters on screen, a lot has to do with television. I think in that intervening period, television, with gay characters on television, has been very influential in destigmatizing the concept of gay characters as being freaks or the forbidden territory, if you will. I know when I was growing up, gay characters on screen were considered either a desperate or suicidal or dangerous or the butts of jokes. And one of the things we wanted to do with Making Love was to rectify that, was to show a positive, for the first time, show a positive image of a gay person who was accepting of his homosexuality and able to feel a pride and gratification in who he was, in his being honest with his identity. And this ran totally counter to the images of gay people that certainly I've grown up with, and others of my generation have grown up with in the media and in film and television. And I think in the years after Making Love, I think television, which comes into your home every week, and the abundance of gay characters on TV in sitcoms and our dramas, that people ultimately grew to accept gay characters as just part of the fabric of society. So that when Brokeback did come out in 2005, I believe, people were much more accepting of gay characters on screen. Although interestingly enough, in the characters at the end of Brokeback, one is beaten to death and the other ends up very sad and lonely. But it took place in another period too. I mean, it was depicted an earlier time. I think in 1982 with Making Love, while it was certainly embraced by the gay community, I think in the audience at large, it still was a very tough image to accept of a gay man who was able to leave his wife and establish his identity as a gay man and find happiness as a gay man. That was still a message that society was not quite ready to accept at the time, although the gay world certainly embraced it in a big way. I remember we had a couple of screenings where we had screenings with gay audiences, and they cheered and applauded. At last, a film that it said that we were not only human beings, but we were whole and complete and happy. But straight audiences were very uncomfortable at the scenes of intimacy between the two guys, and you'd hear, you'd see people walking out, you'd see a lot of nervous reaction. I don't think you'd find that today in film, and I think it was ahead of its time. Ken Russell was one of the great legendary directors, and when I was at UCLA Film School, if you could work with any director, in the world, during the 70s, think Kubrick, you'd say Polanski, you'd say Ken Russell. So the opportunity of working with Ken, we had the same agents, ICM, and they had sent him the script and he responded, and it was just a great experience working with him. He had enormous respect for the material, so he wasn't about to change the script, but he was also at the same time bring his own vision to it, which I was thrilled to be working with him. We worked very, very closely together. I was there on the set every day, and he, if he had any concerns, we would talk them out. So it was really, it was a great experience for me working with a master filmmaker. Tony, who I think was a great actor, was fearless. He would do anything above and beyond and over the edge to bring a character to life. And he would try different things. He was so consumed by the character and so consumed by the world of the character that he would create the character's living quarters. He would come to the set with great ideas, sometimes perhaps a little over the top, but he was constantly coming up with creative approaches to making this character as outrageous as he could, but still within the confines of the material. It was a joy to work with him because off camera he was a lot of fun, and he certainly knew film, and we would talk film, and of course he worked with some of the great masters, so I would want to know what was it like working with Hitchcock. What was it like doing the shower scene, which he actually didn't do. That was a stand-in. But working with Tony, I've had a great opportunity to work with some wonderful actors that, when I was a kid, I grew up, just, loving on screen, like Tony, like Elizabeth Taylor, like Rock Hudson and Kim Novak and people like that. It's great. Very dedicated to that part. I mean, again, she knew what she was in for, and she was a major star at the time, coming off of *Romancing the Stone*, and this was quite a different part. And her people were very concerned about her image, but she went for it. So she was a total pro along the way. It certainly broke a lot of barriers, and it certainly, again, was a pretty raw and pretty graphic depiction of the psychology and sexuality. I felt after making Love, I wanted to take it one step further and really, get into some very dark, disturbing areas. At the same time, with humor. And we had a screening just a couple weeks ago at Outfest, and the film to this day played probably better than ever. Knock 'Em Dead is a film that will come out in the theaters and video on demand on Friday, November 7th. Mark the date. Knock 'Em Dead is a fascinating project because I got a chance to work with David Dakota. David is an old and dear friend that I actually met on Crimes of Passion. David was working craft services. He was a kid at the time. And we struck up a friendship and kept in touch over the years, and always talked about working together. And I had seen his films over the years, and they were terrific. All of the Brotherhood movies and all of the wild, outrageous films he made for Charles Band, and then later for Regent. And we talked about working together for a long time. And we went into a company and pitched an idea we had for a murder mystery with a lot of humor, with a show business background. And we pitched it to the company, and they bought it. And I went off and wrote the script. And as is the case with most projects in Hollywood, the script languished there for a long time. But David was determined to make it. He always was passionate about this project. And over the years, we've tried different ways of trying to get it on, trying to finance it, and came close several times, but not quite. And then at one point, David just called me and said, "Let's make this movie ourselves." I said, well, okay, great. What are we going to do for money? He said, well, we'll do it cheap and we'll finance the film ourselves. I said, hey, I'm in. Let's do it. And we did it. I mean, it happened that quickly and that easily, really. But I will say, the only way it happened that way was because David is such a consummate pro and knows how to make a movie in a brief period of time, and he's a master of preparation and knows exactly what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and do it quickly. And to make this movie, we needed to do that. So he knew exactly where to put the camera. He had all the shots planned in advance. He knew the location. He knew the mapping of the location and where the actors would go. And we were able to shoot the film very quickly because of that. The other reason we were able to do so was because we had a wonderful cast, and the cast were total pros, and they knew exactly what they were doing, and they knew their lines, and there was no temperament, there was no ego. They were totally committed. I asked this on panels and in interviews, what would be the optimum circumstance of a gay character in film, and I say exactly that if you did one of these action tentpole superhero movies where the main character happened to be gay, and instead of coming home every night to Reese Witherspoon, he'd come home to Ethan Hawke. And you never said anything about it. Well, in Knock 'Em Dead, David called me one day and he said, I've got a great idea. Let's cast the entire film African American. I said, that's a great idea. I said, let's do it. And not say anything. I mean, I didn't write it African American. I wrote characters. And we just cast it completely African American without even mentioning that fact. So it's a totally colorblind movie, if you will. So I think it's somewhat groundbreaking in that aspect. One of the role models for the film were those Agatha Christie movies that I wrote, and we've always loved, Dave and I have always loved the format, the structure, the concept of the whodunit, and Christie, certainly mastered that. And what we came up with was a classic whodunit, or certainly in the classic style of a Christie mystery, but with a lot of raucous, campy, bitchy, off-the-wall humor, and doing it almost, I wouldn't quite say a spoof, but doing it with a lot of a tongue-in-cheek comedy. And it does follow that format. I mean, a series of people gathered at one specific location. In this case, the 10-year reunion of the cast and crew of a movie, and planning the sequel to the film. And the fact is, everybody hated each other's guts and never wanted to see each other again. But now, in the 10-year period, they've all become desperate and destitute and impoverished and really need the job. So they're willing to put aside their old grudges and try to work together. Of course, the minute they see each other, all those old grudges resurface, and they start hating each other all over again. And suddenly a murder is committed. And they're trapped in this location, and then another murder is committed, and ultimately one murder after the next, and they have to bond together to, not only for their own survival, but to find out who the killer was. So it is that classic murder mystery structure of the whodunit. And within that framework, there's a lot of humor and a lot of bitchy repartee. I've been very fortunate as a screenwriter in that I've been able to be on the sets of several of the movies I've done. And I think it's because it's ultimately, and I tell this to screenwriting students, that it's ultimately the relationship you have with the director and how open and inviting and trusting the director is, whether or not to enable the writer to be there. And I've always been very, very fortunate in working with terrific directors who, who have no ego or no, controlling impulse that they feel that, they have to be the dominating presence on the set. I've worked with directors who are confident enough and talented enough that they're not threatened by the writer's presence, so they invite that input on the set. So, with working with Sidney J. Furie and Arthur Hiller and Ken Russell and David Dakota, I have the experience of being there, on the set. Now, in the case of Knock 'Em Dead, because, I was also one of the producers and worked very closely with David. This was, we're a partnership, and we very much, we're pretty much very much in sync with every beat of the film. I don't think we ever had a disagreement. So while David was setting up the shot and lighting the scene and working out the camera directions, I was in the other room with the actors running lines. And if an actor had a problem with a line, I was there to be able to, to work with that actor to try to make the line work for them, to change the line, or to add a different word that would make it easier for the actor to say. So, I find it's vital for an actor to be on the set, because the director has other responsibilities and is working with the crew and with the DP and with every other element on the movie. I think it's important for the writer to be there to, if there are screenplay problems, if there are dialogue problems, if there are concerns the actors have with the meaning of a line, that the writer be there to, he or she is the creator of that scene, that dialogue. So, he or she can be there to help the actor address the issue that they may be concerned with. In the case of Knock 'Em Dead, because we were on such a tight schedule, David and I were running, dual functions. So while David was working camera, I was working script. And I think that's one of the reasons we were able to do the film as quickly and as successfully as we did. Okay, on this picture, it was one of the best casts I've ever worked with, because not only were they all terrifically talented, but they were all totally committed and totally professional. But they have to be to do this movie on the schedule that we had. They were totally prepared, totally committed, totally dedicated to doing the best job they could, and they did. I mean, they were all remarkable. There's not a weak link in the bunch. Dave and I were very fortunate to have this extraordinary cast.
Freak show babes. Hottest stars of the year.
Year later, they were ice.
3 unique women, Jack. Found that each one needs the movie, the money, the second chance as much as he does.
Welcome home.
There's only 2 things I hate about you, sugar.
What are they?
Your face. A little tough. Her girlfriend's had more reconstruction than Baghdad.
And that all happened right here.
Right.
Hell, in the time it took him to get a hard on, I could have shampooed the rugs and learned Braille.
See, I may be a felon, a psycho, a drunk, an addict, an adulterer, and a petty thief, but I have principles. Hello, she had a mouth like a Hoover vacuum. She could go down on a fire hydrant and not chip a tooth.
That's because she went down on anything that went up. Snap, ooh, dip, ooh, dang.
Well, maybe he only wanted those 2.
Or maybe he's trying to kill us all.
Lazy people all waste the time. I'm going for the gold while I'm in my prime. I'm a star that shines. I illuminate. I don't hesitate or procrastinate. People need more communication.
What's your story? Gay, straight?
I'm straight.
So spaghetti till you cook it.